great to have you in class last week. How's everything been coming along?
It's been really good, actually. It's been a short period of time, but I see the improvements and I feel it. I feel like I'm immersed in the world now, and I feel confident going into the games. Like, I actually have an understanding, and it's not just like luck, which I feel like might have been the case in the past. I'm understanding why I'm selecting answer choices. I'm understanding why I'm eliminating them. It's Yeah, it's been really awesome, actually.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that. That's great.
Yeah, it's been great. I do have, a few questions and concerns, so I'm glad that I'm able to speak with you. It's so surreal seeing you in real life and seeing the background because I've been watching so many videos. But yeah, it's really cool to be able to talk to you.
No, it's great to be able to talk with you as well. I know that we had you in class before, but it's always nice to have the one-on-one time too. So tell me what's going on. I'm glad to help.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to be looking down a little bit because I kept notes
Yeah, sure. Go right
on
ahead.
what I wanted to ask. So I guess my first major concern is my consistency. Obviously, I have a toddler and a newborn, so that's played a big factor in like how much time I'm able to dedicate to sit down and like do my studying. So I got my schedule from you last week. I think I was 5 days into the program, and I started on it. So I feel like I should be, done the week by now. But actually on day 3. So I feel like, okay, every day that I open my laptop and I look at the schedule and I see what day I'm on and how much more I have to do, I'm just like, I don't know if like, I don't know. It gives me a little bit of anxiety. Like, will I be able to finish and go through all the material and have a good understanding, a solid understanding, and get all my questions asked before my exam date, my test date? Because right now I feel like I've been able to get pockets of time, typically every 3 days, which is terrible. But if I'm not actively sitting there and doing questions and like rewriting stuff and doing problems, um, on those days that are off, I still like will look at your IG, or I'll like, you know, listen to students' video explanations and stuff. So I feel like I'm still like keeping my foot in the sand, but I'm not getting to do as much practice, I guess, as I'd like to consistently. So
Sure, I understand. Yeah,
yeah,
it sounds like you have a lot on your plate.
yeah. But it's doable, right? If anything, like that's what I got from you. I think one of the most useful things that so far, like one of the most profound things that I've taken from you is when you said like we spend 4 years on our undergrad and it matters less than the LSAT score, and people are so quick to do like 2 or 3 months. So I'm willing, like I understand that this is going to be hard, it's going to be difficult. I'm literally rewiring how I think. So I'm willing to put in the work. I just feel like I'm not able to get there with my different obligations right now, and I'm just wondering what you think about like me being, 3 days into my schedule when I should be around 7 days. I feel.
Well, it sounds to me like you've already taken the biggest step you can, which is to recognize that this is important enough to invest more than just 2 or 3 months on it for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, for you specifically with a newborn and a toddler, you said you might not be able to touch it for a couple of days. And you're doing what you can on the side. Like you might watch a video or you might go on my IG, for example, which is great. At least you're staying in this world. But then
Yeah.
when it comes down to actually hitting the books, you might not be able to go through the material at the same pace as somebody without those family obligations, without two very young children who require a lot of care and support.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just don't know if you feel like, so I am currently registered for April, but obviously after we talked the first time, I'm totally comfortable pushing it to June. Um, I'm gonna actually do that when I'm done with you. I'm gonna switch the test date, but I'm just wondering if you feel like, am I too behind in the schedule that you had sent me, or to go for June, or do you think I should still try and go for it?
June could be realistic. June could be fine. But
Okay.
what we need to do is we need to spread the work out more. So rather than giving you a plan of attack that assumes you don't have the obligations you do. I'd rather we customize something for you based on the time that you're able to put in. So instead of assuming that you can do 20 hours a week of LSAT, what if we reduce the obligation a little bit so that you can feel you're staying on track?
Okay. Okay, that works. Yeah, that would be super helpful. And then I guess another, moving on, I guess still related to my concern is how I'm studying when I do get to study. I keep like a LSAT breakthrough journal. So kind of like the mistake journal, and any time that I am questioning my answer or not really understanding how I got there, or if it's a question that I got wrong, I'll mark it down. So I've been doing that for every time I complete a game. So obviously it's taking me extra time, whereas instead of going through 4 games, I'm stopping and I'm doing like a whole system of like the question, your explanation, after I watch the explanation video or do like a master class, whatever made sense to me, I'm like writing notes and stuff, and so that I don't get it wrong again. So I'm just wondering, am I doing that too early? Should I be waiting to blind review when I'm moved on in my studying to where I'm like timing myself?
This is awesome. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to integrate review as early into the process as possible. It's the only way to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good thing. You think, like, even though it's slowing me down, I feel like I'm doing more work up front, and then I'll benefit from it later, hopefully. But yeah, okay, that's good to know. Moving on. This is kind of more specific to the logic games because that's where I'm at right now in my studying. And I don't know how. I still don't know how to approach diagramming. I don't know when. Like, I'll read a question, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, this sounds like a slotted. Like, I should do a slotted diagram. But then I look at your video explanation, or I'm in a class and then people have done the tree diagram. I don't know if it's called tree diagram, but you know the one I mean, where you're like connecting the variables with lines and stuff. And so I never know which one's appropriate. And I didn't know if there's like a keyword or if there's something that I should be watching for in the setup of the game that will let me know, okay, this is a slotted versus a tree. And sometimes I'm even doing both. So
yeah, exactly. Well, sometimes it makes sense to do both as well, in my opinion. I mean, that's how I'll do it. Games is more personal than some other sections in terms of how you might approach things. There are multiple valid styles that you can use. It's about what ultimately makes sense to you in the end. But there are a couple of indications that might lead me towards more of a tree or branched style versus a slotted diagram. And so I'll share it in a nutshell, and then there are videos in the course going into this more. But basically, if the game is relational in nature, if a lot of the rules are before, after, rather than referring to specific slots, I might do a tree. If a lot of the rules are referring to slot 3, slot 5, slot 7, then I might do more of a slotted diagram.
Okay. Okay. And that just knocked off my other question. So that's great. I was finding that I'd go to the video explanation and I got to the correct answer choice. But then when I looked at the video, it was like, you guys used a different like way of getting there. But I still like to listen because it's like, oh, okay, I didn't see that, or next time I could apply that. So it's good to know that logic games is more of a personal approach. So that answers that. And then I had some questions about admissions. I know it's kind of early, but while I have you, I was planning on attending one school, and I was planning on applying to that one school. But I noticed that you had a video where you're talking to a non-traditional student, and he had kind of the same mind frame, but financial, like he didn't want to place a financial burden on his family, which I'm in the same boat. Like scholarships are super important to me. But then your response to him was, well, maybe you should apply to more schools to help with, getting more money. And I didn't think of that. And I don't know if that stands true. Like if I should be applying to more than one school, when I really have my eyes set on one school. I just obviously don't want to put a financial burden on my family. That's obviously more important. So I was wondering what your take was on that.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you're in a roughly similar situation to the other student I was speaking with, and I know which conversation you were talking about. I remember it well. So the same thing would apply to you as well. If you want to have negotiation leverage, you have to have alternatives. Whether you will ultimately choose to pursue those alternatives or not is up to you. But law schools will typically have a default assumption that if they knew somehow that yours was that you were only applying to their school, they wouldn't necessarily think to themselves, well, if we don't give her enough money, maybe she just won't go at all. They're going to think the federal government gives out loans pretty easily. She'll take out loans to pay for it rather than getting scholarship grants from us. So why should we give her money when the government can lend her the money and then it'll be her problem to pay it back later? Not ideal for you. You want to have good alternatives, and that means having offers from other schools. Whether you would actually pursue those other schools or not is your choice in the end. But your primary choice doesn't need to know what you would do with those secondary and tertiary options.
Right.
But you want to have your options open. A lot of schools offer application fee waivers, so it wouldn't even cost you money to apply. It would just be a little bit more work to maybe tailor your application a little bit or pay the $15 or whatever it is to LSAT to send over your information to each individual school.
Okay, cool. And then my last question was around the admissions and the admission cycle. Again, something that I'm hearing a lot, but when I think about it, I don't really understand like when it starts, when it stops, when a late application is considered, when it's not. And I'm in Canada as well, so I don't know if that's different. But if you could just explain that to me a little bit, it would be really helpful.
Yeah, sure. Things can be a little bit different in Canada than in the US, and I don't know all the specifics.
Okay.
My understanding for the American context is that applications typically open in September, approximately, and then anytime now in the cycles, anytime September through December is actually relatively early, and that's really started this year with COVID, and it may continue. We'll see, but things have been generally pretty spread out. And then even January, February is kind of in the middle. And then after February would be late. Now for the Canadian context, it's a little bit earlier typically. So there might be deadlines in January or February, but I would look into each individual school to ask them about that.
Okay. That was pretty much all of my questions. Thank you for answering them.
No, of course. I'm glad to help. I'm glad we connected. Keep showing up to class. Keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, I will. Okay, thank you so much, Steve.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.